But I think the social contract, the shredding of the social contract is why, and I put women in this too, black women even. This is why everyone in the West, in many respects, is running around here with their hair on fire. People don't know what to do.
The voice you heard in the beginning of this video comes from Mr. Z, a very knowledgeable, very bright gentleman. His curiosity in Japan is very interesting to me because although he may not have the exposure to the culture the way that I have, living here as long as I have, he sees a trend in what's happening with the birth rate falling in Japan and the evolution of capitalism as we have seen it.
And when you hear me saying social contract, that is a agreed upon God, lowercase g God, that caused us to wake up in the morning and go to work and do what air quotes what you're supposed to do. But that heaven that you were promised, well, didn't come to fruition.
Don't forget about the idea of the social contract because it ties into this CNN article, Sunday, September 3rd, 2023. In Japan, the young find dating so hard, their parents are doing it for them. In a day in Osaka, around 60 men and women gathered for a session of omimae or matchmaking to find love. They mingle away, hoping from one end of the conference room to the other to assess potential matches and the competition. But this is no ordinary speed dating event. One woman in her 60s speaks proudly of her 34-year-old son, a public elementary school teacher. A man in his 80s talks affectionately about his career-minded son, 49, who works as a controller at an electric company. Each of the parents has forked out about $100 to attend this event, hosted by the matchmaking agency. And they are all hoping to meet someone just like them. A parent whose still single daughter or son might be the perfect match for their own lonesome child.
What I got from this also is seeing Japan as the canary in the coal mine. That is why Z speaks about the population decline in Japan. I would argue that's why BGS, Roguish, Nameless also speak about it.
This is a picture from CNN's article from July 19th in Osaka. Parents take part in matchmaking session for their grown children. With rising living costs, poor economic prospects, and the demanding work culture conspiring against them, fewer Japanese today are opting to get married and have children. Their parents, alarmed at the diminishing chances of grandchildren, are stepping in. In Japan today, there are fewer marriages, fewer births, and fewer people. The population has long been on a downward trajectory, and in the year up to January, according to government data, it suffered a record plunge of 800,523 to 125 million. Behind that plummeting population is ever-falling numbers of marriages and births. In 2021, the number of newly registered marriages fell to 501,116, the fewest since the end of World War II in 1945, and just half the number recorded in the 1970s. And when people do get married, they're doing it at later stages in life, leaving less time to make babies. The median age for tying the knot in 2021 was 34 for men, up from 29 in 1990, and 31 up from 27 for women.
That is also why we speak about the stagnant economy that Japan has had for the past 3 decades. We see Japan and the social ills, and you're talking about a society with, a very interesting history. They have a strong concept of nuclear family. They have very disciplined people. And even them, they are going through the ups and downs of modernity and having their old gods slain and replaced with Western gods.
Among incentives offered the parents were a monthly allowance of 15,000 yen, about $100 for every child under 2, and 10,000 yen for every child 3 and above. But James Ramo, an East Asian studies expert at Princeton University, said trying to boost the birth rate was unlikely to work without first boosting the marriage rate. It's not really an issue of married couples having fewer children. It's about whether people are getting married in the first place. Young Japanese have faced poor employment prospects and flat wages since the 1990s, he pointed out. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the average annual paycheck in Japan increased only 5% from 1991 to 2021. compared to a rise of 34% in other G7 economies such as France and Germany. The article continues explaining the mixer. The parents also carry profile photos, many of them professionally shot, some showing young women dressed to impress in traditional kimonos. Most of the photos are of spinsters, bachelors in their 30s and 40s, the youngest 28 and the eldest 51. And they have a range of professions, from doctors and nurses to civil servants and secretaries. One father complained that he hadn't been able to set up his 40-year-old son despite exchanging his profile with 10 other parents, she said. On a closer look, she found out the father had turned down all of the women in their mid-30s and those more educated than his son. Sounds like someone we've heard before, huh?
Because they asked if she's married. She's like, oh, I'm not married because I choose not to be. I'm a PhD.
This is a survey from a matchmaking site, basically asking your reason for not getting married, what you should know so that you don't have regret. When men were asked why they're not married, the number one answer at 55.4% was tekito na aite ni meguri awanai kara, or they haven't met the right person. The second at 35.6% was kekkon no seikatsu shikin ga tarinai kara. They don't have enough money for life after marriage. Third, kekkon shikin ga tarinai kara. They don't have enough money for marriage, or the wedding, I guess. Number 4, jiyu ya kirakusa o ushinai takunai kara. They don't want to lose their freedom or their ability to have a good time, right? And the last one, hitsuyosei na kanji ga nai. I don't feel the need to get married. So in this order, you can see that it's centered around money. For men want to be in a proper place and have a certain financial standing before they get married. As for the women, first, just like the men at 58.8% was tekito na aite ni meguri awanai kara. Number 2 was jiyu ya kiraku o ushinai takunai. They don't want to lose their fun or freedom. And third, hitsuyosei o kanjinai kara. They don't feel the need for marriage. Number 4 at 23.5%, shumi ya goraku o tanashumitai kara, or I just want to have fun doing my hobbies and entertainment. And lastly, at 22.9% is kekkon no seikatsu shikin ga tarinai, just not having enough money for marriage. When you put the two side by side, we start seeing things that we're quite familiar with. After not meeting the right person, for women, the thing that's most important is enjoying their freedom. When it's men, what's most important right after not meeting the right person is having enough money to support a family. And that goes right back to the broken contract.
That shredding of the social contract between corporations and the state, between the state and its citizens, between the citizens and the corporations, that shredding of the social contract, that what I argue is much of the reason why the Black Manosphere even exists, is because many of us had a very visceral awakening to the shredding of that social contract.
The contract for men used to be, if you are a good worker and you give your best to a company, the company is going to take care of you and give you a wage by which you can retire a woman and she can have a lot of kids for you. But we have seen that contract change to now the woman is looking across at the man and say, you can't afford to retire me anymore, because essentially it's unlawful to pay two people at the same level the same amount of money. So it makes it more difficult for men to retire women. And it also gives women an opportunity to say, well, let me just be young, enjoy my youth and make money and have a good time. And so for that old contract that used to be, I'm going to retire a woman and a woman's going to have children from me, now it's something different and we don't really know what it is. And so for guys that are looking around the world, one of the advantages that you will have is that you can go to a country where women aren't making as much money and it gives you an advantage. Plain and simple, in developed nations, the contract is changing. And because the contract is changing, behavior is changing. And that's why Mr. Z calls Japan a canary in the coal mine, because I see it. A lot of young women don't want to give up what they have, the freedom, the ability to travel where they want and do what they like, for the duty of having kids, or at least until it's too late. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.